Okay, we're going to begin our presentation. I'd like to welcome all of you to the ISO 9001-2015 Preparing for a Successful Transition webinar. My name is Joseph Krolikowski and I am the Technical Director of Perry Johnson Registrars. A couple of quick technical notes. All of our participants today are in mute. However, we'll be glad to take your questions. Please make sure that you utilize the question portion of the dashboard, and at the conclusion of our presentation we will answer all of your questions and make sure that you understand everything being presented today. Overview of our topics. We're going to begin with an examination of where the standards come from, how they're developed. We're going to review why the changes to the 9001-2015 standard were so dramatic. We're going to have a review of the timeline for transition. We're going to take an in-depth look at the key changes. We'll answer a question that I'm sure for many of you is important, and that is, do you have to overhaul your current system? We also have an FAQ portion of our presentation consisting of many of the questions that have come up numerous times. We've worked them into the presentation itself. A couple of final points, and then we will take your questions. So in terms of where the standards come from, ISO is an abbreviation. It stands for the International Organization for Standardization. And what the ISO is, it's a collective made up of numerous international members. And the sole purpose of the ISO is the publication of international standards that meet some purpose. And they have a lot of standards that they publish. Each of those standards is written by a technical committee, or TC. Now, in the case of ISO 9001, the assigned TC is TC 176, and TC 176 itself is made up of members from each of the major industrialized nations. Now, the U.S. representatives are drawn from the American National Standards Institute, or ANSI. Now, as to why the changes were so dramatic and why we are seeing such a difference now in this new standard, there were a few reasons, a few motivations for the new standard. First of all, the fact that the industries that use ISO, those industries have evolved and their needs have evolved, and as a consequence, the standard itself also has to evolve and keep up with the times. Obviously, the ISO has a desire to see the 9001 standard used in more sectors, more industries, more types of applications. There was a targeted effort on this occasion to simplify the language that's being used to try to aid in understanding and promoting of consistency. And perhaps most importantly, there was a desire to improve the cross-compatibility between the standards, particularly for those companies that want to have more than one certification. For example, companies that want to have a combined 9001 and 14001 certification. Nigel Croft, who is the chairperson of TC 176, towards the end of the development process, he was asked what are the key features that the committee wants the 9001 standard to have. And I've put his comments into my presentation because it does a very good job of summarizing what is it that the standard is all about and trying to accomplish. First of all, the standard is very much rooted in the idea of processes. The whole idea of having processes that are systematic, that are managed, processes that are based on results, processes that help ensure consistency of activities within a quality system. Secondly, the whole idea that we can follow the cycle of plan, do, check, act, and that this should be prevalent both at the process level and the system level. And very similar idea, the whole idea that we carry out our processes in a planned fashion, that we have controls in place to check those processes, and based on the results of those checks that we take actions to improve the consistency of what we're doing. The new idea, in terms of it being named, was risk-based thinking, the whole idea of preventing undesirable outcomes. And risk-based thinking, we're going to see, I'm going to try to show, is not such a new idea in terms of the activities that will support a system of risk-based thinking, but in terms of this being a fundamental principle, it is a new idea. So let's take a look at the timeline and look at where we've been and where we're going. Going all the way back to June of 2013, we saw the publication of the committee draft. And this was a document that was limited distribution. Pretty much just the committee members were the ones that saw this document. In May of 2014, we saw the issuance of the draft international standard. Believe it or not, there were some companies out there that began planning their quality systems based on this document. That document, in turn, gave way in July of last year to the final draft international standard, or FDIS. That document was roughly 95 or 96% of what became the final standard, the certifiable standard, which of course was published in September last year. Now looking ahead, we are still a little ways off from the September 2018 cutoff of 9001-2008, and the plan, of course, is that all clients who wish to continue to be certified by September of 2018 will have successfully transitioned to the new standard. And so we have the new standard. It was published on September 15th of 2015. It is available for purchase directly from the ISO at www.iso.org. It represents the culmination of nearly 3.5 years of work, going all the way back to the issuance of Annex SL back in 2012. Now, by virtue of the standard reflecting a September 15th, 2015 publication date, we now know, of course, that the official cutoff for 9001-2008 is September 14th, 2018. Now, obviously, PJR has to have some way to cut off our auditing on 9001-2008 and ensure that we're able to provide continued certification with no lapses for our clients. Our policy has been documented on the FAQ document, which is available right on our website, www.pjr.com. You'll find all the pertinent details related to the critical dates. Now, in May of 2015, our management team met to discuss the needed additional audit time to properly assess a quality management system that has transitioned from 9001-2008 to 9001-2015. We concluded at that time that for the majority of our clients, a small amount of additional audit time would be sufficient. Now, each of you will be advised on a case-by-case basis what that additional time will be. Now, in terms of what the key changes are, any examination of 9001-2015 has to begin with a discussion of Annex SL. Now, Annex SL has a couple of other names. It's been called the High Level Outline, or HLO, Annex XL. It is, as the name implies, an annex, and it's part of a larger publication called the ISO IEC Directives Part 1, Consolidated ISO Supplement Procedures Specific to ISO. This is a standard that is all about how to write standards. It's a self-imposed set of requirements that the ISO follows, and it covers all of the steps and all of the requirements for publishing and writing a standard. It's actually available for you to review if you wish, and I've provided the URL here below if you wish to read it. It has absolutely no bearing whatsoever on any individual quality system, but if you're interested, you can review it. Annex SL was written back in 2012. It was developed by a special committee called the Joint Technical Coordination Group. And what Annex SL is a standard 10-section blueprint, and it provides some common terms, core definitions, core verbiage even, and it's intended to be used for all of the ISO family of standards. So all of those standards that ISO publishes will eventually fall into this 10-section structure. Now, the long-term plan is that all of these standards will be transitioned by this year or next year. And that's going to, of course, be dependent on the work that's done by the individual technical committees and the other things that they want to do with those standards, but that is the long-term plan. So what is this 10-section structure? Well, sections 1 through 3, as before, are non-auditable. They include scope, normative reference, and terms and definitions. We'll dig into that in just a little bit. The auditable portion begins in Section 4. Section 4 is called Context of the Organization, and it includes some key ideas. We talk about what is the context of this organization, who are the interested parties, what is the scope of this system, what are the processes that make this system, that make up this system. Section 5, we have some ideas pertaining to the idea of leadership. Leadership is an important new idea that's presented by this standard. There's some familiar items here: quality policy, defining roles, defining responsibility and authority. Section 6 is called planning. This is where we find the majority of requirements pertaining to risk. This is also where you will find the requirements that pertain to quality objectives, planning to achieve them, and overall planning of changes. Section 7 is called support, and again, quite a bit of content here that is familiar. Competence is here, communication is here. You'll note the new documented information is here. This is where we find discussion on what used to be called document control and records control. And we're going to have a clarifier on that statement in just a little bit. Section 7 is also where the requirements pertaining to measurement devices are now found. So if you take sections 4, 5, 6, and 7 together as a set of requirements, what we have really are a set of foundations. The whole idea of these are the basic pieces that you need to have an effective quality system. And that's intended to set the stage for what comes in Section 8. Section 8 is called Operation, and you can think of Section 8 as all of the day-to-day activities, the core activities of an organization. Selling the product, designing the product, purchasing what's needed for the product, controlling your production activity, controlling nonconformity where it occurs. All of these activities are discussed under the heading of Section 8. So we set a foundation. In 4, 5, 6, and 7. In 8, we kind of have our day-to-day activities. This is very much in the spirit of how 9001-2008 started, again with 4, 5, and 6 foundation, Section 7, product realization, day-to-day activity. Annex SL concludes with Sections 9 and 10. These are called Performance Evaluation and Improvement. And again, a lot of familiar content here. Management review, internal audit, corrective action, Measurement is here, analysis, evaluation. And you can again see the parallels to 9001-2008. If 4, 5, 6, and 7 set the foundation, Section 8 is day-to-day activity, 9 and 10 are all about measuring our outputs, measuring our system, knowing that things are performing as they should, and making improvements or adjustments as needed. So it's very much in a plan, do, check, act kind of flow, a process flow, so to speak. Let's dig a little deeper now into some of the key changes and try to highlight some of the items that will be of interest to you as an organization. And let's start with risk. Risk, the term risk, is actually used 16 times in the auditable portion of 9001-2015. And there's an important thing for everybody to bear in mind in terms of understanding what they mean by risk. Maybe some of you on the call remember what it was like when we transitioned to ISO 9001-2000. The new idea at that time was continual improvement. And the way that it was explained was that continual improvement was not a set of projects that you do as one part of your system. It's intended to be an attitude, a philosophy really, on how to operate all of your processes. And continual improvement was supposed to be something that affected all of your processes. Well, risk-based thinking is viewed in the same way. And I do use the term risk management and risk-based thinking interchangeably. They're rooted in the same core concept. So based on that, one of the most important things that is explained about risk management is that a formal documented risk management process is not required. You don't have to have a process on your IOP or a procedure within your manual that is strictly for risk management. Now that's certainly one way to approach it, but it's not mandatory. It's intended to be something that affects all of the various areas of your quality management system, and it's supposed to be something that affects all of your existing processes. Let's have a look at the core clause for risk, and it's found in section 6.1. 6.1.1 starts off with, when planning for the system, the organization needs to consider the issues referred to in 4.1. Now, just to clarify, that's internal and external issues, meaning that these are going to be things that are raised by customers and suppliers, but also within the organization, and the requirements that are referred to in 4.2. Now, that's referring, again, to interested parties, and the idea is that this is going to be both within and outside of the organization. So issues and requirements, and then determine risks and opportunities that need to be addressed. And I do want to emphasize that both of those terms are used here, risks and opportunities. This is not just about avoiding bad stuff. It's absolutely also what are good things that are happening. What are things that we can, as subclause B says, enhance desirable effects. Because in both cases, you know, if you're avoiding things that are bad and enhancing things that are good, you're going to achieve improvement, subclause D, and you're going to have assurance that the quality management system can achieve its intended results. It's very much still a results-driven standard. You know, again, plan, do, check, act. We check what we're doing, did we achieve what we intended to, and we take actions accordingly. So risks and opportunities are given equal footing in this clause. So what do you do once you've figured out what these risks and opportunities are? Well, 6.1.2 then continues and says, okay, you're going to plan actions to address those items, and you're going to figure out how to integrate and implement those things into your system processes. Right there, you can see that they're pointing out, make this part of what you're already doing. Make this part of your existing processes. And then also evaluate the effectiveness of those actions. And then finally, actions to address risks and opportunities need to be proportionate to the potential impact on the conformity of products and services. So right in the verbiage of the standard itself, they nail it home that this is not a standalone process, or at least it's not required to be. This is an integrated aspect of your quality system. One of the more important questions that we've had along the way with this requirement is, what am I already doing that correlates to risk management? And it was important to us to be able to outline what are some things that 9001-2008 requires that will enable an organization to say, hey, I'm already doing risk management. I'm already incorporating risk-based thinking. And we start with 5.6, management review. You're already required to assess your quality system and have targeted improvement efforts, take actions, and so forth. 7.2.2, reviewing requirements related to the product. You're already required to assess what your customer is asking you to do, or what the industry is asking you to do, and take action to resolve discrepancies. That's avoiding an issue before it happens. That's risk-based thinking. 6.2.2, training, competency. You're already reviewing your competency needs, and you're already taking steps to ensure that your personnel are fully qualified and fully competent. That's absolutely risk-based thinking. And then most obviously, preventive action, 8.5.3. Assessing potential problems and taking actions to avoid those issues in the first place. So for those of you that already have a strong preventive action program in place, absolutely we encourage you to keep that program as part of your larger risk management strategy. Let's continue with some other changes that have been brought on by the new standard. The terms procedures, records, and documents have all been eliminated, and they've been eliminated in favor of the phrase documented information. Now, there's an important clarification that's provided in the Annex, Annex A6. We're going to be learning more about the annexes a little bit later. A6 talks about the phrase maintained documented information and retained documented information. And maintained documented information is generally understood to be a replacement for past references to document, procedure, or quality manual. And there's a handful of requirements where it's called out as maintained documented information. These include Section 4.3. Which requires that the scope of the system be documented and be, as the standard says, be maintained as documented information. Now, retained documented information, that phrase, is generally understood to be a replacement for past references to record. And there's obviously numerous examples within the standard, including 9.3.3, which requires that records of management review be retained. So be on the lookout for those phrases, maintained documented information, or maintained as documented information, and then retained documented information. All references to product now read products and services. This really has been in place for a long time already. If you read Clause 3 of 9001-2008, it states, wherever the term product appears, it can also mean service. Obviously, the standard is trying to push the idea of 9001 as being applicable to multiple types of businesses, those with and those without a tangible product. Management responsibility is now referred to as leadership, and this is actually part of a much larger idea in terms of the role of leadership within the system. We're going to be looking at that shortly, but the big idea here is that management has to be involved and not simply direct that activities are performed. Continual improvement has evolved. It's now part of a larger section simply called improvement. The idea here is that continual improvement is not the only aspect of improvement to be strived for in a quality system. You can also achieve improvement through things like breakthroughs, reactive changes, reorganizations, and so forth, so that continual improvement really should be part of a larger strategy for improvement. Suppliers are now referred to as external providers, and the term external providers is actually intended to be a little bit broader of a term. Again, referring to the Annex, Clause A8 stipulates that external providers include not just suppliers, but associate companies and outsourcing. Now, all of these ideas were already there in ISO 9001-2008, but now they've been kind of pulled together into a central set of requirements. Now, there has been some elimination of required content, and I'm sure many of you on the call, if not all of you, are well aware of this. And that is that 9001-2015 does not specifically require any of the following: quality manual, procedures manual, or work instructions. Now, our analysis on this is as follows. Can an organization achieve certification without any of these documents? Absolutely, yes. However, auditors are still going to be required to verify consistency with the applicable requirements. So the organization has to be able to show us that what they're doing is consistent and effective. Now, if that can be done without a procedure or without a quality manual, absolutely that's to be accepted. But we're still going to view quality manuals and procedures as a potential strategy for achieving consistency and effectiveness of processes. Okay, the title management representative does not appear within the 9001-2015 standard. And this is kind of an interesting turn, and the implication of this is not that the responsibility has been eliminated, but rather that the key functions of that party should now fall to top management itself. Leadership should be leading the quality system. They should be taking responsibility for the quality system. There's a very important subclause in Section 5 where it says that management leadership needs to make itself accountable for the quality management system. Now, does this mean that an organization can't appoint a key contact for coordinating audits and for leading corrective action reviews and so forth? No, but the management of the system should not be on one person's shoulders in the average company. Now, for most organizations, this is how it's done already. There is a management representative that's appointed, but the leadership team takes responsibility for the system, and that's absolutely best practice, and the standard wants to promote that as the right way to do things. 9001-2015 has removed all verbiage pertaining to permissible exclusions. Now, what's interesting about this is that now an organization can claim any item from 9001-2015 under a non-applicable designation. And it does mean by the book that the entire standard is up for grabs as non-applicable. Now, our analysis on this is that for the most part, exemptions are going to come from Section 8, a couple possible exemptions from Section 7, but outside of those areas, we feel that an organization is going to have a very, very difficult time substantiating an exemption. but we will obviously take those into consideration as they come up. Now, in terms of in practice during the audit, the validity of those designations will be verified every time, and you will likely document your exemptions in the same way that you're currently documenting your permissible exclusions. We talked a little bit earlier about the phrase interested party, and I'd like to take a moment to discuss the term and give you an understanding of the definition for that term. And that is a person or organization that can affect, be affected by, or perceive themselves to be affected by a decision or activity. And interestingly, they give some examples. They talk about customers, okay, owners, right, people within the organization, and suppliers. And then they kind of expand on the definition, talk about bankers, unions, partners, competitors. Now, if you take a strict reading on 4.2, there's a key word that's used there. And it states that the organization has to determine who their relevant interested parties are. And that word relevant is extremely important. It's up to the organization to ascertain relevancy as it pertains to interested parties. And the intention is that as an organization, you're going to make sure that your quality management system is considering all relevant inputs. And the term interested party really is intended to kind of broaden your perspective on where those requirements might come from. Now, in practice, will this be all that different from how we already view inputs to the system? Not so much, but it is intended to get you thinking about what this might mean. Let's take a look now at some key new questions that are being asked, and we're going to do this on kind of a section-by-section basis. Sections 1 through 3 are not specifically auditable. That is as before. So we begin then with Section 4, context of the organization. And a lot of similar ideas to what we have in 9001-2008, Section 4, Quality Management System. It does ask some interesting new questions. What purpose does this organization serve? Who are its interested parties? And can it claim any part of the standard as a non-applicable? Section 5, as I mentioned earlier, has really quite strong verbiage within it related to top management's involvement in the quality management system. Talks about, is there a leadership structure? Has management, has leadership made itself accountable for the system? Has leadership ensured that the policy and objectives are consistent with the strategic direction of the company? Has the quality policy been made available to the interested parties? Has the system been integrated into business processes? Now, there's been some question about business processes. I want to assure everyone that we will not be digging into your financial records. That's not the intent here. This is simply, are you utilizing your practices within the quality system, things like revision control on documents and training of personnel and so forth within your business activities. Section 6, planning for the system. Some key new questions here. Have we considered the risks and opportunities? Are we taking actions for those risks and opportunities? And there's been some interesting changes to the quality objectives requirement. We're now looking at who's responsible. What is the target date? What is it that we're trying to accomplish? And are the objectives relevant to conformity of products, and do they enhance customer satisfaction? That's all very important ideas pertaining to quality objectives and having them be meaningful. Section 7 is called support. A lot of familiar ideas here that were formerly in Section 6, resource management from 9001-2008. There is one key new idea, and that is organizational knowledge. Now, Organizational knowledge has its own annex clause, actually, and I'll point that out shortly. But the idea behind organizational knowledge is that it's knowledge gained by experience. And how do you ensure that that organizational knowledge is retained? And furthermore, have you considered changing needs and trends against your current competency base and determine what is needed for the future? Beyond organizational knowledge, there's no other significant new content that hasn't been present in some form already in 9001-2008. Section 8 is called Operation, and in our analysis, Section 8 has no significant new content that was not already present in some form in 9001-2008. Section 9 is also a section without any new significant new content. A lot of familiar ideas from 9001-2008 Section 8 and 5. And that's also the case for Section 10, Improvement. No significant new content that was not present in some form already in 9001-2008. So as we've hopefully made clear, the changes to the standard really are minimal and manageable. Even risk really is not such a new idea. As we've hopefully demonstrated, there are a number of things in 9001-2008 that are risk-based thinking by their very nature. What we're going to do now is kind of a cover-by-cover review of 9001-2015, and this is intended to give you a sense of what's where and how the standard has been structured. And we'll begin with Section 0.1. This is a general overview. It provides some statements on who the standard is intended to benefit, talks about risk-based thinking, plan, do, check, act, and it talks about 4 key terms that are used within the standard. Now, this particular verbiage is found in Annex SL, so it's intended to apply to all standards. Shall, of course, is the primary word. It is a mandatory requirement, and of course, numerous instances of shall within the standard. Should represents a recommendation, and for the 9001 standard, there are no uses of the word should. And then we have may and can. May represents permission. That term appears once within the auditable content, and then can represents a possibility or capability, and there's numerous instances there. Typically with can, it's intended to provide clarification on what is meant by a particular requirement. This can include, for example. Section 0.2 is a listing of the 7 quality management principles. There were, of course, 8 at one time. 2 of the former 8 have been combined into evidence-based decision-making. And it does reference the 9000 standard where these 7 items are given a more thorough explanation. Section 0.3 is called Process Approach, reinforces the process approach intended by the standard, and it gives an improved graphic for process approach, further reinforcing plan, do, check, act, and tying it to the sections of the standard. Section 033 is called Risk-Based Thinking, provides a definition and an explanation of the importance of the idea. And then Section 0.4 is called Relationship with Other Management System Standards. And the 2 other standards of note here are 9000, the Fundamentals and Vocabulary, and 9004, the Guidelines for Improvement. Section 1 is called Scope, some general verbiage on the applicability of ISO 9001. Section 2 is called Normative Reference, providing a linkage to the 9000 document and stating that all official terms and definitions are found therein. Section 3 is called Terms and Definitions, but it's currently without content. The thought is that perhaps someday in the future you may have some 9001 specific terms and definitions, but for the time being, the terms and definitions provided in 9000 are going to be sufficient. We've already reviewed sections 4 through 10, so let's continue with the annexes. There are 2 of them. And in particular, I think you're going to find that Annex A is going to benefit you as organizations and users of the standard. There's a lot of key information here, so when you get your copy of the standard, I do encourage you to read all of these annexes under subclause A. There's 8 of them altogether. A1 is called Structure and Terminology, and it reinforces the doctrine that as a certified organization, you are not required to align your documentation to match 9001-2015. And additionally, you don't have to use the terms that are found in the standard. So for example, if you like calling them suppliers, there's absolutely no reason that you have to suddenly start calling them external providers. That is a new term in the standard, but you don't have to incorporate it into your documentation. So Annex A2, products and services, a little bit fuller explanation of the intent in changing all of the references to read products and services. Annex A3, which we've already seen some of the content of, understanding the needs and expectations of interested parties, an explanation of what they're going for and who are the interested parties. A4 is called risk-based thinking. This is an extensive section intended to help you understand the concept, and it provides official documented emphasis that a formal structure, a formal process for risk management is not required. So if any of you are ever at an impasse with an auditor or another quality professional who is convinced that you have to have a formal system for risk management, you can point this out and say it's right in the standard. A4 says I'm not required to have a formal process for this activity. A5 is called applicability. A little bit of discussion on the logic for removing permissible exclusions and what's intended by the new concept of non-applicables. Section A6, which we've seen already, some discussion on the term documented information and explaining those terms maintained and retained documented information. A7, the concept of organizational knowledge. What is meant by this idea and what are the challenges that an organization might face related to competency, including the loss of longtime employees. And then finally, A8, a discussion of externally provided products and services. What does that term apply to? What did we mean by external providers? Annex B is more extensive discussion on the relationship between 9001 and other related documents, including 9004, 10001, etc. And then finally, the standard concludes with a bibliography. Now, as to whether or not you have to overhaul your current system, as we've hopefully made clear, you absolutely do not have to overhaul your system. One of the TC-176 committee goals, as we've mentioned, was to improve the inclusiveness of this standard. If you tell over 1 million worldwide certified companies that they have to overhaul their system, that's not inclusive. That's not consistent with that goal. So one of the ideas that I want you to walk away from our presentation today with is if it's working, keep it. If your quality manual fits what you do, keep it. If your procedures are part of your quality system, if you use them as part of your quality system and they are effective at defining your processes, keep your procedures. If your quality policy is well known, if your objectives are known and understood and adding value, keep those as well. Let's shift gears here and have a look at some FAQs from past presentations, the questions and the answers. Will our staff have to complete transition training? This is going to depend on the extent of revisions that you're going to be making to your system, but generally, yes, you are going to be expected to provide some form of transition training to your staff. At minimum, PJR's expectation is that awareness training is going to be provided, and an assessment of the new standard's impact on your processes and your personnel. Now, it's entirely conceivable that the majority of your staff is going to feel no effect whatsoever from your transition to 9001-2015. So, for example, the people that are out there running machines every day, making products every day, for them, it's going to be business as usual. But you still have to provide some measure of awareness training and assess the impact on a process-by-process basis. Now, what about your internal auditors? Do they have to complete transition training? Now, internal auditing, what you have to remember is it's viewed in the same light as any other competency within your system. And that is that you as an organization are responsible for determining what it means to be competent for every aspect of your quality system, including internal audits. So if you have a seasoned team of auditors that have been doing your internal audits for many years and know your system well, it's entirely conceivable that those auditors could complete a period of self-study and transition to being auditors for 9001-2015. You as an organization will have to make that decision yourselves for your audit team. Now, as has long been the case, when we review your internal audit process, by default, we will be looking at the competency of your auditors. Will the other standards be getting updated? In particular, AS9100, TS16949, and TL9000. Absolutely. Each of those standards is in the midst of their own transition process. They have all indicated that they intend to continue to align with 9001. At the present time, we don't know what the timelines are in terms of a firm publication date, but it seems probable that all three will be published yet this year. The only major standard that we know of that is not planning to continue its alignment with 9001 is ISO 13485, which is the medical device standard. 13485 has decided to go its own way, be more closely aligned with the FDA 820 CGMP requirement, and they are targeting early to mid-2016 this year for publication. Should we get certified now or should we wait? There are many companies out there, perhaps some of you are on our call today, that have put a great deal of work into implementing a quality system. And perhaps that quality system has been based on 9001-2008. And you're wondering, well, is there still value in getting certified to 9001-2008? Obviously, PJR can't make the final decision for you, but bear in mind that the 2008 standard has still got some time left for it, and there's still time for it to be a valid standard for you to use. Those first few audits that we're doing to 9001-2015, it's a new standard. It's a new standard for the auditor. It's the new standard for the auditee. The auditors will get more comfortable auditing 9001-2015 as time goes by. But if you want to be certified now to 9001-2008, we can absolutely accommodate you. If you want to be certified right now to ISO 9001-2015, we can accommodate you for that as well. But bear these things in mind. And what are the right steps that should be taken if you are currently certified? Well, first and foremost, get a copy of the standard. Purchase a copy of 9001-2015 and ensure that the leadership team identifies the gaps that need to be addressed. Draw up a plan of implementation with assigned responsibility. Ensure that all of your documents are updated to reflect any changes to the processes. Now, if your processes are unchanged, then those documents would not have to be updated. provide all necessary awareness and transition training, ensure that a full system internal audit is performed, followed by a management review, full implementation of corrective actions for any internal audit findings, and then coordination with PJR for planning of transition arrangements. I do want to make a final point on the documents and the transition of your documents. Make sure that your existing documentation works for you first and foremost. If renumbering your documentation to match the 2015 standard makes that documentation work better for you, then do so, but it's not going to be required. We do encourage you also to work with your auditor. I'm sure for many of you, you have a long-standing relationship with your auditor. They know your people on a first-name basis. Your auditors have all been trained. We've completed a long period of training with our auditors. We have endeavored to ensure that they know what they're doing with the new standard. We are viewing the auditors as a valuable resource in helping you achieve a successful transition. We feel that the 9001-2015 standard is a beneficial update, and we will absolutely continue to provide timely updates, and will endeavor to make sure that our clients have a smooth transition. Couple updates on the support standards. As I've already alluded to, the 9000 standard is now in a 2015 revision. It was published on the same day as the 9001 standard. The 9000 standard is where you will find all of the sanction definitions, the quality management principles. It also provides a series of concept diagrams showing the intended interrelationships of ideas. As before, the 9000 standard is not a certifiable document. It is provided for guidance and for ensuring that the common definitions and terms and so forth are all understood. The 9004 standard remains for the time being at the 2009 revision. This is, of course, the guidance standard on improvement. And the 19011 standard remains at the 2011 revision. And that's, of course, guidance on auditing for both quality and environmental management systems. We've prepared a couple of reports that we feel will be beneficial to our clients. These include a side-by-side comparison between ISO 9001-2008 and ISO 9001-2015. The comparison is actually done both ways. And we've also prepared an FAQ report highlighting key questions and answers, including some of the items that we've looked at earlier today. These can both be found on our website at www.pjr.com. They're right on the home page near the top in the center. A couple of other webinars that I'd like to make everybody aware of. We have ISO 9001-2015 critical points of review during the transition audit process. That one is also given once a month. It's a deep dive into the new areas represented by 9001-2015 and how those items will be assessed during the transition audit. And also the interaction of processes and its importance to a successful audit. That's also done once a month. That webinar is a special exploration of the topic of processes and how to properly understand them. We do like to keep in touch with our clients and with potential clients, so we do encourage you to opt in. If you visit our website at pjr.com, at the very bottom of the page, you'll note a space that you can enter your email address and click subscribe. This will have automated messages sent to you regarding webinars, as well as points of interest pertaining to 9001 and other standards. I do thank you all for your time today. I'm going to go ahead and open the question dashboard and see if we have any questions from our guests today. Okay, any questions at all? I have a thank you. Well, you're quite welcome. It's my pleasure. Okay, well, if there are no questions, we will conclude the presentation. I want to wish everyone a good day, and thank you for your time.